I'm holding. Tell me when, Tony. Are we good? Yeah. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming out to our, I don't know what number, 8, 9, 7 gender body meeting. Today we have a new presenter with us today, Mr. Jacob Frank. And just some updates. We passed the halfway point of the semester. We've had really great success so far. Had some really great AMAs, interviews. We've had a good tailgate, good Gator Bitcoin Club meetings and partnerships with Gator Tech and UF InfoSec. What's to come? We have a great presentation, like I said. And then we have next week an AMA with Consensus. They're one of the biggest, they call themselves a venture studio for applications built using the Ethereum network. And they also consult about the Ethereum network. And that's going to be really great. We have 2 speakers from that. Please come out. And then after that, we're going to have a presentation by, again, one of our very own, Robbie, about the upcoming fork. So it'll be really exciting, really insightful. And this isn't the first time we fork, so we'll get to compare this fork versus the ones that we've had prior. After that, we'll have our last tailgate of the year. So feel free to come by. I know we'll try to compete against Beta's, tailgate, but we'll come pretty close to that. And then will be elections. So come on by. We have great leadership opportunities. We've had people who step up this year, and like we say, we're a meritocracy. So if you come in, you show effort, you show that you want to contribute and be part of the board. That's great too. And then also each board member will have committees under them, so you can work in the committee as well. The second half of the election will be actually talking about the crypto challenge. So for those of you that are in the crypto challenge, you'll send me your notes of what you did, what your ROI is. I'll compile it into a presentation and we'll share after. Even if you weren't part of the crypto challenge, if you come in, we'll share best practices of what we did in the past month and keys to success. Besides that, anything else to share, Nathan, Antonio?
I think so. You nailed it. Or not.
Well, in the pipeline, in the works. Speaker series in the fall, because we've had a really great relationship and partnership with the Chamber of Digital Commerce and Perry Ann Boring. She really wants to push blockchain in Florida. She thinks that Gainesville is a great hub where alum, which we do have some alum in the industry, come gather, speak about their success, and then always lead to a tailgate. So we'll make that happen. And then also in the works in Swamp Hacks, which is the biggest hackathon on campus in January, there may be a blockchain category. So stick around for that. And I mean, every week we meet, so things will change. Things we'll let you know. Please join the Facebook group. Please be part of the the Slack channel. Look at our website. We got some really great opportunities. And without further ado, I don't know how you say ado, but here's Mr. Jacob Frank.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob, and I'll be giving a presentation on the Monero cryptocurrency. All right. First, quickly, what is Monero? Monero is a cryptocurrency with a focus on privacy and decentralization. It was forked from Bitcoin in 2014 and launched under the name BitMonero. Quickly took like 5 days for them to take out the bit and just call it Monero. Unlike Bitcoin, it uses the CryptoNote protocol, which introduces a private blockchain. Core features of Monero include it is secure, private, untraceable, and fungible. All right. Unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum, Monero uses a private blockchain, which means that all transactions are confidential. So essentially in Bitcoin, you have the public blockchain. Every single transaction will always be recorded. You could see what address sent to what, how much. In Bitcoin, all of that is obscure. You will never be able to find that out. And like other privacy-centric coins like Dash and Zcash, privacy with Monero is mandatory. With Dash and Zcash, it's essentially blockchain and you can choose to send it privately. With Monero, it's always private unless you choose to make it public. All right. Privacy is achieved through stealth addresses, which ensure the privacy of the recipient, ring signatures, which ensure the privacy of the sender, and ring confidential transactions, which ensure the privacy of the transaction. All right. Stealth addresses. Unlike Bitcoin, which only consists of one type of public and private key, Monero wallets consist of a view key and a spend key. For each transaction, a one-time public key is generated by whoever is sending the Monero by combining the receiver's public view key, public spend key, and just random data. When a transaction output is created, it is created in such a way that the receiver with their private view key to locate their output. So only you will be able to find like what Monero was sent to you. A one-time private key is created that corresponds to the one-time public key. This private key can only be created by who is receiving the Monero. So only you could spend your newly received Monero. And use of stealth addresses lets the user publish one address. You have all transactions go to unique addresses on the blockchain that cannot be linked to the public address. So as you can see here, let me use this. Bob creates a key, and then the address is generated from that key. People who want to send Bob, essentially Monero, use just one-time keys that essentially all go to Bob, but they don't know, like, they all go to Bob, but they don't know how much Bob actually has because they only send it to him like through the one-time address. All right, now for ring signatures. A ring signature is a digital signature generated through the combination of multiple signatures. The digital signature in Monero is composed of the actual signer combined with multiple non-signers in a way that each member has an equal chance of being the actual signer. So essentially imagine a joint bank account, but whoever, like, imagine a joint bank account, two people each create half the signature. So you don't know who like the actual signer is. So non-signers in Monero are pulled from the blockchain and essentially act as decoys. So these combined with the actual input make up a transaction's input. Double spending is prevented by the use of a unique key image attached to each transaction, which due to its cryptographic properties makes it impossible to determine which output created which key image. So to prevent double spending, there's essentially a list of all key images on the blockchain. So essentially, if you're trying to spend a transaction twice, like they can just check the key image and determine if it's already been used. So you can see here, you don't know which private key was used to sign the transaction, but you know you have a list of the public keys that correspond to the private keys, and you know one of them was used to sign the transaction, so you can determine that it was actually. And also, for enhanced privacy, the amount of ring members in a ring group can be customized. So let's say you want a quicker, low-fee transaction. You can say, I want 5 ring members. But let's say you're really paranoid. You can say 20 ring members. So it makes it even harder to find out like who you are, like it's a needle in a haystack. All right, so ring CT. This was actually implemented earlier, 2017, and prior to it, Monero transactions had to be split into different denominations to ensure there would be an ample amount of ring members in a ring signature. So this would reveal how much was in a transaction. So essentially, let's say you want to send 12.5 Monero to someone, you'd have to break that up into a group of 10, 2.5. So first you'd have a ring group for the 10 Monero being sent, a ring group for the 2, and a ring group for the half. But if you hide the amounts that is being sent, you could pull however many ring members you want because you don't need to split it up into the denominations. And this significantly improved privacy in transactions. Ring CT also implements Pedersen commitments, which is a cryptographic, which ensure that transactions inputs and outputs are the same without revealing the actual amounts. So in order, that's to make sure like no Monero was just created out of thin air in the transaction without revealing like how much Monero was actually sent. All right, so this is just a nice graph of what a Monero transaction looks like. So essentially you have this incoming transaction. All right, let's see, hold on. This is very complicated, as you can see. Okay. Incoming transaction, public key. Then you have the amount that can be accessed by Bob's private key. And say, okay, he wants to send it to Carol. He uses private key and a public key. Or it was 5. Where? Is it not- Yeah, there it is. Okay. So in this transaction, you have the one-time key to send to Carol. And then they use that key to sign it, but they also take all these outputs from past transactions to act as decoys in the ring signature, and then attaches the key image to the ring signature so they know it's the first time that the output has been used, so it's not a double spending. That is then added to the end of the transaction. Where are we now? Okay. Transaction public key. Just what is that for? Hold on. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. Random number generator to create the transaction public key. Hold on, how does this work? Like the people who made this PhDs in cryptography, and I'm just trying to figure out how they did it.
Can we take a step back and just go over the ring signatures?
Again, oh yeah.
So the way I understood it is there's all the different public keys in the network that
Mhm.
correspond to everybody's, I guess, wallet, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever you try and send a transaction with Monero, it's like you take just one random public key, or you use all the keys that are in the ring signature to
No, here, I'll go back to the nice infographic. Okay. So what happens is, let's say I want to send I don't need that much privacy. So I say, okay, I want to send with 5 ring members. So I'm included in that. So it's me plus 4 ring members taken from at random from the blockchain. So the transaction is created in such a way, it is signed so that you don't know who signed it with their private key, but you know all their public keys and you know one of them signed it. So you know it's a verifiable transaction, it's legitimate, but you don't know who signed it.
so it could have been anybody.
It could have been anyone. Yeah. So imagine like a ring of people who they all have an equal chance of being the legitimate signer of the transaction. So let's say if I want 20 people in my ring group, like that decreases my chance of being the actual signer. But that also, it's more expensive because it's a larger input. So yeah.
Do you choose the people in the range?
No, completely random.
Because they're just,
Yeah.
it's just because they're serving as decoys, right? So
Yeah,
random
just
ones
pull
from
random
the
flow blockchain. And because like with before ring CT, like before the transactions were hidden, like in order for you to pull a decoy, it'd have to have the same amount. Because let's say you're sending 10 Monero and you pull a decoy that sent 12 Monero, like you'll know that's not the correct one. So that's why it had to be broken up into denominations so there'd be enough ring members to make it plausible deniability. But after that, you can pull whoever because you have no idea how much is being sent. Where's it? Yes. Yes.
Can you go back to the picture graph? Yeah, that. One thing that I want to point out with Monero that makes it so powerful at providing privacy is that not only is this transaction, you don't know who the real participants of this transaction are. Every one of the transactions that feed into this one follow the same thing because this is how all transactions are by default. So if you were to try to follow this on the blockchain, you would, first you try to search through Alice's key, Bob's key, Carol's key. And the first time you went through it, you would see that it was just like a fractal, never-ending, spiral into other transactions. And there's no, there's no way you can pin anything.
Exactly.
So as more transactions are made, it's actually getting more and more secure
Mhm.
in the future. As it progresses.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yes, it's cool. Okay, honestly, I don't think I can explain this in a way that people can understand it. I still don't fully understand it. I stared at this graph for like 2 hours and like it's ridiculously complex.
Yeah, that's a brave presentation topic. Like Monero is legit.
Yeah. All right.
And just gauging the room, like, let's start at the top. Who best heard of Bitcoin? Blockchain. Okay. And Monero? Okay, so it's like some people that don't know what Monero
Yeah.
is. And Monero, can you explain what it was?
The basic, the core features that it's secure. Here, actually, I can go all the way back to it. Secure, private, untraceable, and fungible. So essentially, like for Bitcoin, all you have is the secure part, and I'll get into that later. But that's why the title is private digital cash, because it truly is like digital cash. All right. So as I was saying at the beginning, like unlike Dash and Zcash, which also are branded as privacy centric, they are transparent by default, and you can choose to be private. It's private by default, and you can choose to be transparent. So essentially, let's say you're sending, for Monero, it's difficult to set up multiple wallets. So many merchants will only use one wallet. But in that case, if everything is private, like you don't know who you receive money from, so it's really hard to verify like who you had money, who paid you. So that's what introduces a payment ID, which makes it easy for merchants to know, okay, you sent the money without like giving up all of your privacy. And let's say in the future, if like you need to be audited or like verify, let's say a charity needs to verify like how much donations they had, you can share a view key, and that can be used to verify like how much Monero is in a certain address. Okay, like Bitcoin, the Monero network has no trusted third parties. Transactions are confirmed and immutably added to the blockchain through distributed consensus. What Monero does for decentralization that Bitcoin does not is it introduces ASIC resistant mining. Essentially, with Bitcoin mining, the algorithm is bound to how fast your processor is, which makes it easy to create just faster processors. For Monero, it uses the kryptonite hash function, which is memory bound, which means it is bound to how much memory is in your essentially CPU's cache. It's extremely fast memory that doesn't vary much between CPUs, GPUs, and ASIC miners, which makes it easier for like an ordinary person to mine it. Like it's not extremely profitable, but like you can mine it with an ordinary computer, unlike Bitcoin, which makes it less likely to centralize hash power. Like, you have like huge Bitcoin mining pools, and you have to spend like ridiculous amount of money to even break the surface of Bitcoin mining. And Monero is not like that. All right, fungible. Fungibility is defined as being mutually exclusive, and Monero achieves this through stealth addresses, ring signatures, and ring CT. So what fungible essentially means is, like if I give you $1, you don't know where that dollar's been, so it's just worth $1. Let's say if I told you that dollar has been through like a Somali war zone and like was used in like just like heinous acts, like you're less likely and everyone knew that dollar has been through that history, like you're less likely to want to hold on to that dollar. So this solves that problem. So that problem in Bitcoin is essentially like where that Bitcoin has been. So let's say that the Bitcoin has been through like a darknet market and used in illegal activities. Like exchanges can essentially blacklist that coin, so you cannot sell that coin or trade it, which is a huge problem in my opinion. All right, now we get to essentially controversy in Monero. So due to its untraceable nature, Monero is quickly becoming the coin of choice for many darknet markets. In August 2016, Alphabet became the first notable market to accept Monero. This caused Monero to skyrocket from $2 to peak of $13 in less than a month. And more recently, in-browser mining, I'm sure you've all heard about this. CoinHive released an in-browser JavaScript miner. Well, like the reason Monero is used for this is because of its ASIC resistance, so it's easier to run on regular hardware. All right, so in the future, Monero is looking towards implementing multi-sig addresses, which will simplify merchant payments. A multi-sig address is essentially, let's say you and like your spouse set up essentially a joint bank account. In order to spend money from that joint bank account, you both have to sign like approve of that transaction, which makes it easier for merchant payments, because let's say you buy something from a merchant, you send the money to the multi-sig address that you and the merchant set up. So you don't release the money to be sent to the merchant until you receive the product, and then you both sign, and then the money is released to the merchant. If you never receive the product, then you never have to release the money. They're also looking at implementing sub addresses, which essentially allow Monero to be sent to different addresses and all go to the same wallet. So you can essentially have an address for like being paid from work, or let's say you're trying to raise money and all that money is sent to the same address. So you don't have to or same wallet. So you don't have to set up multiple wallets for different purposes. And then this new project called Kovri, it will run the Monero network through I2P, which is very similar to the Tor network, which will obscure all IP addresses on the network. That's essentially the last thing holding Monero back from total absolute privacy, which is like when transactions are broadcast, your IP address is still like seen on the blockchain. I mean, you can go around this by using a VPN or Tor, but this will have built-in IP obfuscation. All right, this is just a chart comparing Monero and Bitcoin. As you can see, Monero is greatly smaller in market cap than Bitcoin, about 90 times less. They both use a proof of work algorithm to essentially mine. It's different from proof of stake, which means proof of stake is you set aside a certain amount of coins for X amount of time and you get paid essentially interest by the network. Proof of work is mining with your computer. Monero uses the CryptoNote algorithm, which is essentially like private blockchain ASIC resistance, and Bitcoin uses the SHA-256. Monero is ASIC resistant while Bitcoin is not. You can also see that the network size of Monero is greatly lower than Bitcoin. And this is a big one too. Monero only takes 2 minutes to confirm or to process a block, while Bitcoin takes 10 minutes. So very, very quick compared to Bitcoin. This is also a big one, block size. Monero does not have a static block size. So depending on the network load, it will change the block size it needs. The one thing is, if to discourage miners from creating huge blocks, they incur a penalty if their newly created block is greater than double the size of the median block size for the last, I think, 100 blocks or so. And as you can see, average block size is relatively small, about 0.3 megabytes. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has a static 1 megabyte block size, and that's been the source of heated debate for long time. Average fee in the Monero network, only about $1.12. Bitcoin is $6.55. Both pretty high in my opinion, but a lot lower than Bitcoin. And Monero is private while Bitcoin is not. So in essence, like, I see Monero as being more of what Bitcoin was like seen to be, because you can track Bitcoin. Like the FBI is developing tools to essentially go through the blockchain, and track down people who are using it for nefarious purposes, and that's not really like cash, in my opinion. So yeah, that's about it. So questions? Yeah.
So can you see who owns Monero?
No. You do not know.
If you go on Bittrex and decide to exchange Bitcoins for Monero, how can you hide that you own Monero?
You have to run your own wallet, like outside of an exchange.
That's the only way to buy Monero?
No. Sorry. I'm sorry, say it again.
So can we know who buys Monero?
Off an exchange?
Yes.
Yes, the exchange knows that. But they don't,
Okay.
like, once you take it off an exchange, no one knows how much Monero you have.
Okay, so we don't know who owns Monero right now.
No, you'll never, like, in Bitcoin, there's a rich list where, like, the top addresses, which addresses own the most, like, you will never have that with Monero.
Okay, and what are the tax purposes of owning Monero?
Like, if you need to.
What if I have like $1 million and decide to put in Monero? Can I then use Monero as a way to evade taxes?
I mean, you could use Bitcoin to evade taxes as well. I mean, I guess you could say, if the government starts regulating and starts like requiring people who own cryptocurrencies to verify they own X amount and pay tax on X amount, you could share a view key which can verify how much you own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Go ahead. Okay.
I was going to say, you're talking about some sort of suggestion about like evading taxes, and I just want to say that is a very like don't try that.
No. I just want to know what are the implications, because I can see this as being used in Alphabet or other websites. So it's really interesting to know if people can see the utilization of evading taxes. then a lot of people can use it for nefarious purposes, which can increase your market cap. So I'm not going to use it for evading taxes.
And this is a, yeah, it's a tool that, you know, good, honest people can use to maintain privacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you to go over block size.
Yeah.
Just kind of a little bit more.
The differences in block size?
What is the importance of it? Like, what is
Okay, yeah.
what is the greater meaning of it?
Okay, so block size essentially means how many transactions can fit into a block. A block is essentially just a group of transactions that are confirmed by miners. The advantage of a dynamic block size over a static block size is that it can change depending on how many people are sending transactions at any given time. So if not many people are sending transactions, the block size can be like 0.2 megabytes, and it keeps fees lower. On the other hand, I mean, you have a static 1 megabyte block size in Bitcoin. If you're getting more transactions than a 1 megabyte block can hold, that will cause fees to go extremely high, which is essentially happening right now, which is the source of the 2 megabyte versus 1 megabyte block size debate in Bitcoin. Yeah.
And you said that the size of the transaction depends on how many people you
How many
have in the
ring
ring
members, yeah.
signatures.
So like if you have like 20 ring members, the fee on that transaction is going to be a lot higher than 5 ring members because you have more inputs.
Why would you say CPU mining for Monero, if it can be done in browser, is so, like, just very not popular compared to like big mining pools for Bitcoin?
What do you mean?
Well, it seems like it's just so much more accessible to mine. Just any individual can mine Monero, but people are still trying to mine Bitcoin. Like, why aren't we seeing more rise in the mining power for the individual in Monero?
Well, I just don't think Monero is that popular yet. As you can see, the network size is a lot lower. I mean, the first thing people think when they think cryptocurrency is Bitcoin too. Honestly, that's not the only thing of.
I think it was part of its profitability. I mean, in the end, miners, they're driven by profits. So if you can see a lot more profits in mining Bitcoin, usually just go towards Bitcoin.
Right. It just seems like now it's kind of like, if this is the beginning state, like back before Bitcoin got popular was when miners were making so much Bitcoin. So now before Monero can get popular, it seems like now miners would be flocking towards Monero to try and get ahead of the curve. But
Also, I could see maybe because that it's almost equally computationally inefficient to mine on different types of hardware like CPUs, GPUs. Like people who have the amount of money to get into mining like aren't able to get specialized hardware to essentially give them an edge in the market.
I think it's interesting the proportion of nodes to market cap, because it shows that, I mean, it is a lot less centralized, I guess, or that more people are you required to run a node to mine, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that kind of speaks to how proportionately decentralized it is compared to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree.
And another thing about the network size and the different types of nodes, like one node can have a majority of hash power compared to 99% of the other ones. So there's some metrics to see actually if the nodes are actually decentralized. Just the number doesn't really reflect. Like in Bitcoin, there are like 11,000 nodes, but just a few own like most of the hashing power. So.
And also, not all the nodes are miners. Also, like some people just run nodes for or like altruistic purposes, just to support the network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is probably a really rudimentary question, but what is a node?
What is a node? Okay, a node essentially, when you broadcast a transaction to the network, you send it to a node, which essentially puts it into a list of unconfirmed transactions, which is then sent to miners, which then, when a hash is found, confirms the transactions, and then the node's added to the blockchain, which makes it a verifiable transaction. Yeah.
What are the downsides to Monero? Like, is there anything that like would prevent it from getting very popular right now? Is there anything that people are unhappy about it?
Yeah, there's one major thing. What was it? Well, yeah. Okay. So first of all, it's really they literally just released a graphical wallet. So before you had to go through a command line to access a wallet, which was for a lot of people, like just out of the way. Like, there's still a lot of bugs in the wallet.
Is that just because it's new?
It came out in 2014. I mean,
Okay.
it's just because there's a lot of technical problems surrounding Monero. Like right now, they're working on like hardware wallet integration, and they're having like an extremely hard time with it compared to like Bitcoin-based coins. Like Monero's a lot more complex than Bitcoin in many ways. Yeah.
And part of the reason they're having so much trouble with that is because it's so private. It's hard to integrate it into normal.
Yeah, like you have to like implement like ring signatures into like the hardware wallet. Like everything is done in the hardware level.
Right.
So yeah.
So it just doesn't support all the different privacy aspects of Monero yet.
Do we know the team behind Monero, or they're private too?
No. Oh yeah, we know them. There's about, yeah.
I think in
I think there's
Zcash we don't know the developing team, do we?
Zcash is like they have a group of investors
Yeah,
that
we know
get
Zcash.
paid by
Because Zcash is like they have it so like about I think it's like 10% of every mine block reward goes to the developers, which is ridiculous in my opinion, but yeah. Yeah, I think there's like 10 core developers in Monero. I think about 200 something have contributed to the open source project. So it's a pretty, I consider, decentralized project.
And that's one of the other things too, if you actually look at the GitHub, as you can see, if you look at proportionally to like Bitcoin commits, Monero is like up there in one of like the most active, open source development communities.
This might be a stupid question, but how does the developing team of Monero make any money? Are they taking percentages of?
I mean, donations. No, they don't take percentages. Donations, I'm assuming.
They're running strictly on donations?
They also hold a lot of Monero, like a lot, most likely. I mean, we'll never know, but.
No, definitely. They definitely hold, and actually I met one of the developers, his name is Ricardo Spagnoli, right?
That's Fluffy Pony.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then, yeah, they hold it. And at the time, it was worth like $20, and now it's 90. So he just holds it, and that's how he makes it with the exchange. And then, yeah, seems a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, if you're the developer, you're there when it first launches.
Yeah.
So if it's a penny when you're there, now it's $90. They're doing fine.
Same as Satoshi.
I think because it can be used for money laundering and because it's so private that governments eventually are going to have to regulate it or maybe.
I mean, attempt to regulate it. But yeah, like I remember a couple months ago, Coinbase though.
Yeah.
They were trying to add Monero to Coinbase, and Coinbase just couldn't do it because because of its private nature. There are just so many regulatory hoops to jump through that they just couldn't integrate it.
I want to put forth an idea that maybe the government has some shady stuff that it does that it also might want some privacy for.
So wait, what do you think the impact will be once it's like made illegal? If it is,
Nothing. I think the price will go up.
It's the same question I asked about Bitcoin. What happens when the government bans it?
You can't ban it.
China banned it.
That's the beauty of decentralization. You can't really ban it because it's everywhere.
Well.
Going back to like one of the first slides about the one-time addresses, is that similar to Bitcoin addresses? Because I know Bitcoin addresses, they tell you to use it one time.
It's similar, but like the one-time address in this case, it's used. You give someone the one-time address.
You don't have sub-addresses?
Well, yeah, I think you're talking about Bitcoin sub-addresses because the one-time address in this case is you give someone. Actually, I took away the better graphic. Okay, so you give someone the one-time address, and then that's sent to like your actual address. So like the one-time address is generated from combining view key, spend key, and random data. So they use that one-time address, but it's sent to like the address that only you know and only you can access.
Okay, so it is similar to Bitcoin in that way, I guess.
I mean, I think you think of sub-addresses more.
Yeah, I am thinking of sub-addresses.
Yeah, sub-address.
Yeah, because if you look at a Bitcoin wallet, you'll have like this long list of addresses that use each time. And that's all going to the same wallet. This is giving out different addresses to different people, but it's all going to one like main address.
Okay, I have to research on that.
Yeah, I'm probably not doing a great job explaining.
No, you're doing great.
So if I were to buy Monero, what wallet would I send to?
I would not recommend in keeping it in an exchange. There's a web wallet called Monero, which it doesn't require you to run a full node, which I highly recommend because all the private key stuff is kept on the client side, so they never hold the private keys.
Thank you.
Make sure there's a lot of scams for Monero. You have to make sure you're entering it in the web address bar. Like, don't go through a search engine. Enter mymonero.com. Like,
MYMO.
yeah, I'll write it down here. Yeah. But like, so many people have lost money because it's like mymonero.co or .con, like misspelling, and like it's a phishing website, and they just get their keys. So yeah.
It's on the moneroinfo.org page as well.
Did you say they have a GUI now?
Yes.
So where is it? Does
But
that come
it still
from?
requires you to run a full node.
Okay.
So it's not like Electrum where you can just use a remote node. You can, but I'm sure it's still pretty buggy. Yeah.
So I still have this question about Monero.
Yeah.
So I send you one Monero, and when I do the transaction, the network generates how many other transactions at the same time? 6, 3?
Well, no,
Or
it doesn't
depends.
generate more transactions. It takes past transactions and uses them as like decoys, so you don't know who actually sent it. You know, it's one of X amount, but you don't know who it was.
So it never generates new transactions? It only uses past
Well,
ones?
no, when you create a transaction, that's when the new transaction is generated. But when in ring signatures, it does not create new transactions. It takes old transactions and makes them seem like these could be the new transactions.
All transactions that I did or that Joel did?
Oh, anyone. It's just random. They just pull it.
It's usually mine though. It always does mine.
The important part here is how it works in combination with making the place that it's coming from and the place that it's going to also private. So it's when it works, you know, if everything was public where you could see all the addresses, then you could see like, oh, these are all new transactions that are coming into the blockchain, right? But if where the address is coming from and going to is just private,
Yeah.
then
Is there a public ledger on this?
Private.
I see the address.
I mean, there's a ledger where you can see the blocks and you can see they're just full of data. And, you know.
You don't know anything else.
Yeah.
Basically, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because comparing with the Bitcoin network, they have the public ledger where we can go and see like all the transactions. And I saw there was a guy claiming to be Satoshi. And they're like, okay, send some of your coins. So we can actually verify if it's really you that did the transaction back in the day. So if it was with Monero, we could never verify. Yeah.
Well, the view key.
A view key. Oh,
You should have view key.
the view key. Oh, okay.
Do you see corporations integrating Monero for internal billing within itself?
I mean, possibly. I see the future of Monero more being like what people thought Bitcoin was going to be, like being truly like digital cash, like
private
in that sense.
Well, Bitcoin like conquered other achievements. I don't think it was.
Well,
gonna
no,
be,
but like when Bitcoin first came out, it was like touted as being like anonymous because like I guess you're not really associated with your address, but now it's like pseudo anonymous because you can still see like if someone knows your address and they see you sending stuff from that address, or like they know how much money you're having, or like if there's a list of darknet market wallets and they see you sending money to darknet market wallets, like they know you're buying drugs or stolen identities.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right.
All right, cool.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob.
We'll stick around to answer like any other questions.
Could you go back to the other slide, like the one with the big infographics?
With
Like the really complicated ones. I just want to stare at this for a while.
Right.
What's